And first, a little bit about myself. So I'm a coach and I work with women and help them to reduce their imposter syndrome, to help them to speak positively and consistently about themselves, and to help them build those confidence muscles. In October this month, I'm really excited because my book is finally coming out and it'll be available in both in ebook and paperback. But now I would love to ask Waynette a couple of questions. And first, we'll just ask, how are you doing, first of all, in these strange times?
Good. It's not too much of a big change for me because I worked from home anyway. So, you know, but yeah, I'm good. Just plugging along and taking one day at a time, just doing one step at a time. Definitely trying to remind myself to bite off as much as I can chew, because sometimes, you know, I want to like do all the things at once. But yeah, so giving myself permission to, you know, be okay with that and just like do what I can at each step at each time and just letting it be what it is. So yeah, I'm good.
Brilliant. Okay. So I'm going to start with the first question. So please tell us, what do you do? Why do you do it?
So I am a leadership coach for women. I have a bit of a twist to that. So when you hear of leadership coach, you're probably thinking, you know, leadership skills, how to build a high performing team, you know, how to connect, how to build culture, all these things. And while I may provide support along those lines as well, my focus really is about helping women really ignite the leader within themselves by cultivating their mindset and considering them as a person really, and them being a leader of themselves first. And then seeing how mastering self in that way develops this better relationship with ourselves, if you will. And in that, truly allows you to sort of blossom as a leader, because once you have that clarity and that security internally with your soul, body, mind alignment, you know, the rest sort of just flows. Your connection with other people in relationships changes and enhances, and really that's what leadership is relationship between the leader and follower. You know, authority and worker, and having that meeting of the minds where the center is really that relationship, that connection, that understanding, that empathy, and that care, that investment in those people as a leader, rather than myself. I'm no longer thinking about myself. I'm no longer thinking about you know, doing the work. I'm thinking about, okay, how do I help these people do their best? So.
Okay, cool. So please, can you also tell us a bit about your career, like background and history, what you were doing before coaching?
So yeah, before coaching, I was a corporate lawyer, originally from Bermuda, now located and living in Manchester. That background is interesting because I started out, I did my training and whatnot, and then I had this sort of stage where I was like, okay, I'm just not happy. I'm completely miserable, actually, is the word that I used. And it was a lot emotionally. And so I sort of completely abandoned that path for a little while. And well, I can't really say completely, because what I did was I went and worked for free for a nonprofit organization as their legal counsel, their in-house counsel. And in doing that, I opened myself up to growth and opportunity that I just didn't even expect, really. I ended up being asked to be Chief Financial Ingenuity Officer and Business Development Officer. And then shortly after that, I was asked to be Chief of Staff of the organization. And we actually, once I joined, we actually ended up building the company up, where we ended up having 3 companies and started to create a group of companies, which I oversaw from the parent and down. And I was leading leaders, and really kind of just thrown into it. So I had to learn quickly, how to do this thing called leadership, while also learning and understanding, because it was a leadership development vision that the visionary had. And so I really just focused on connecting to that vision. And it was a huge growth period for me. And after that, I went back into corporate law and did that a little bit for a little while. I still wasn't happy. Life sort of just kind of pushed me back that way, but it still really wasn't what I wanted to do. So still not being happy, I remained in it, but still searching, still soul searching, still looking around for, where is that job? What is that job that, gives me that fulfillment? And then I realized, what, it doesn't exist, at least not in a title conventional way that we're all looking for. And so I said, well, you know what? I'm gonna have to create this thing. And so here I am, doing what I love now, which is helping women, helping people, but especially women, to be their best selves, to go after their dreams, and to be leaders of themselves first. And really, that's what I think I mean when I say being a leader of yourself first, is really going after it, going after you, going after your vision for yourself, for your life, for your career, for your relationships, whatever it might be. But really having that confidence and that faith in yourself, that self-trust, that self-belief, and that self-confidence to just go for it. Be fearless and go for it. Don't let money and ties and fear and judgment and all of these things hold you back, because at the end of the day, what is life without being happy and fulfilled? I don't want to look back on my life and say, well, what the heck did I do for me? Really, it's my life, it's your life. It should be lived as you want it to be, as it feeds you. It should feed you. Yeah.
Yes, no, absolutely, absolutely. Wow, I was just like, whoo, that was a good insight there. I almost lost the question now. I was so thrilled.
Sorry, I have a habit of doing that. I just get like so wound up and I end up going for it, but it all connects.
And no, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And likewise, if anyone out there has got a question that they want to join in, please do not feel shy. But what I was going to ask
I'm
you,
here to answer.
Absolutely. So we'll keep reminding everyone to do that. So, you were just describing some of your background in the corporate environment. And, that must have been tough. So can you tell us some challenges that you might have overcome, specifically as being a Black woman, and how you found navigating that kind of environment? Do anyone else in there?
Yeah. So I think my experience is even goes one step further than even just being a Black woman in the corporate world. Being Black, being a woman, and then also being of a economic background that wasn't very much. My parents weren't prominent members in society. We didn't have a whole lot of money. My dad worked his ass off just to, put me through private school. And so I was often in scenarios where I never really quite fit in, especially also because as a Black woman, my complexion is a little bit lighter. And so there were lots of things stacked up against me in life, not just the corporate world, but in the corporate world as well. So yeah, I found myself in that place where I was the token woman, the token Black woman, because I ticked multiple boxes. So it was like, score. I can laugh at it now, but and I've been placated. as a Black woman, you know, where it's just like, oh yeah, you know, we'll help you grow, we'll push you forward, and nada. I've been ignored, I've been not taken seriously, I've done the same actions as someone else and they've been viewed completely different, you know. And so the only way to really overcome any of that is to develop a thick skin. But when I say develop a thick skin, I don't want people to think that means to throw away your kindness or your empathy or your heart, your care, because sometimes that's what ends up happening. And so I'll backtrack and say, really, the only way to get through anything like that is to have the right mindset. And during that time, I can't say that I did have the right mindset at that point. It was at that point where it triggered in me, something triggered in me, okay, wait, hold on. I need to survive. And I could see myself, the natural tendency to kind of go down that path that's a little bit scary, where you start losing yourself, where you start getting bitter, you start getting resentful, you know. And I was very keenly aware of that and didn't want it. So something within me was just like, okay, no, we need to figure out how to get through this intact. And from there, my journey started, you know, searching to really figure out how do I support myself internally in this external world. And that's how I ended up sort of finding mindset development, really, and mindset coaching. And I guess I sort of just intuitively did some things that now I know formally as a certified mindset coach. So that's how I got through that. It's a little bit difficult to say exactly, because a lot of it was intuitive, but I guess what I would say to someone is pay attention to how you're feeling and the thoughts that you're having, and check yourself, you know. Self-regulation is an important part of mindset, let alone life and survival in the corporate world, is what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. You know, being mindful of how you feel and not ignoring those feelings, and thinking about what positive action can you take to, you know, first of all, walk through them, and then think about in the longer term, what are you going to do to actually resolve the problems? Whether you're thinking about, can you still survive in this environment, or do you want to, like, you know, just shift a little bit, or do you want to do a complete wholesale change like you have done?
Yeah.
That's really great. Thank you. So I just wanted to ask you, like, in that time, did you find any career like allies or mentors to sort of, you know, guide you whilst you were in that path?
Yeah. I didn't find any allies in the organization. Actually, the more I went down that path, the more alienated I felt in that particular organization, unfortunately. But I did find mentors and support external to there. And at that time, that support gave me the strength to hang in there, to stay and not run. Because every day I went in, I was like, I'm just gonna walk out, I'm done. I'm just gonna walk out, I can't do this. But, you know, they helped me see and understand that in life, you know, we all have our processes and our things that we need to learn. And these things bring out the best in us. They strengthen our character, they build our resilience, they teach us things that we need to know for the next level. And in order to actually benefit from those things and to progress, you have to wait until that process is over. You know, you can't avoid process. You try to avoid process, really what you're doing is just starting it all over again, and you're delaying the inevitable. And so really, they helped me stop myself from having that start and stop experience of process, trying to outrun it, and I can't. And so they helped me to stay in that environment, in a very difficult environment, until it was time for me to move on, until what I had experienced had built whatever it was that I needed to build within myself. And that's why I say, like I said earlier, like the tough skin, belief in self-trust, and that experience helped me to say, you know what, bump what it is everybody thinks that I need to do. Because a part of why I also stayed in that environment was because everyone was like, but you went to law school, you spent all that money, all that time, you worked really hard for that, it's a prestigious career, you should be proud of it. And I absolutely am proud of it. None of that takes away from, that accomplishment. But it wasn't fulfilling. I love the law. I love practicing law. That conventional way, though, for me, it just wasn't doing it for me. And I learned to be okay with letting go of what was built up in my head of what this career meant, that it gave me something. And that if I had let go of it, I would be losing what it gave me, which is just rubbish. It's rubbish. I make me great. Who is me? What is me inside is what makes me great. Not a title, not a position, not the labeled career, right? So being kept in that pressure, what's the word? Pressure cooker was probably one of the best things for me. At that time, it didn't seem like it, but it was probably one of the best things, one of the best experiences I could have had.
Yeah, no, you said some really great things. When you said that, basically, your achievement is still your achievement, even if you're not choosing to work in that field. And I think sometimes people forget that. They seem to think, okay, if I've stopped doing that thing, it somehow diminishes the fact that I've done it. It's kind of like, that's like a dead part. That's kind of really wrong, because that's the totality of who you are. You don't just stop being that part of you, even if like that's not your main what's the word, the main show. It's still like a piece of you, and it's still helping you to deliver and to be, whatever you're doing now, the best coach, the best whatever it is that you happen to be transitioning to, because you take those skills along with you. So
exactly.
That's really powerful to remind people of, because I think sometimes that gets lost in the whole career transition.
Yeah, absolutely. I would actually, if I can, what you said just reminded me of something of one of the mentors I had. What they told me, they said, when I left uni, they said, just remember this: your first job, it doesn't have to be the end all and be all. It is a stepping stone to everything else that will come in your life. And remembering that was a key part of it too. It made it okay as well, because he was like, it's just a stepping stone. You don't have to hold on to that.
Okay, brilliant. We have a question from the audience, which I'm going to ask you, okay? So thank you for sharing your question. I'm just about to read it now. So the question is, in the midst of your current venture, are you still practicing corporate law? And if so, how are you incorporating that without drifting back into traditional ways of practicing?
Right. So last year, I tried to continue doing corporate law while pursuing developing the coaching business. I have decided to completely let go of the corporate law side of things now, to completely focus on coaching, just because corporate law it's just not feasible to do both, really. It's way too demanding, the hours for corporate law, for me to be good to either side, really. And again, it's just not where I get my my energy from, and it was draining me more than adding to me, and the money really just got to a point where the money was just not worth it. And so I would say, I mean, it's always a part of me, right? And so my lens in life with different things and contracts and whatnot in life, you know, I'm my own corporate lawyer, really, for my business. And so that's how it ends up kind of staying with me, in short.
Amazing, amazing. So
sorry about the little one screaming.
No worries. That's nothing we should just quickly touch upon. So you're a mom. How has that been for your working career?
Yeah, well, she was another reason why I let go of the corporate law thing as well, because as I said earlier, I'm based in Manchester, and I was I'm Bermuda law qualified. So with the time zone difference and having a little one, it just wasn't gonna work. And I had her literally a week before lockdown. So it's been interesting to say the least. But I was lucky because my mom was here, so she got stuck here with us, and so I had that support and whatnot. And I have my partner's mom too. She's here in the back taking care of the baby now. So yeah, I've been lucky. It's been good.
Awesome, awesome. So we just want to pick up and talk a bit about like the theme of like asking for help. And did you do that whilst you were in your corporate career, or is it something more that you've kind of gotten to grips with, like now you're in the coaching space? Like how did you view it then, and what do you think about it now?
Yeah, so asking for help is definitely something that is you go into the corporate world and you hear these things initially from people. Oh, no question is a stupid question. You know, don't be afraid to ask questions. You know, no one expects you to know the answers. Absolute rubbish. Yes, they do expect you to know the answers. No one wants to answer your questions. And yes, they do think you're stupid. I'm just going to throw that out there and be honest. Okay? It's a lie. It's a lie. And my tone changes there because it's seriously unfortunate, and it offends me, really, because these are people who I'm meant to be aspiring to be like. These are people who are supposed to be helping me and teaching me. I'm literally coming out of school and you're expecting me to be quick to the pool. And it's like, you've been in this for how long now? Don't forget where you came from. I'm sorry, that's just, but it's, I'm passionate about it because that was part of the misery that I felt. I so wanted to be mentored and groomed, and I wanted someone to pour their knowledge and their expertise into me by teaching me, by showing me, by I'm not asking you to hold my hand. I'm not asking you to spell it out for me. You know, what sort of differentiates someone who is a leader in title and someone who is a leader in spirit is one who takes someone like that, who may have a whole lot of questions, who may be eager to learn, who may seem like, you know what, are you really thinking about these questions before you ask? Even if you have that in your student, in your trainee, in your colleague, a good leader stops and just says, okay, how can I teach them how to sort of suss it out themselves? How can I encourage them to push themselves a little bit more before they come and ask? You know, one of the things that I ended up learning was it was good to, and I had a mentor who very much required this of the people that he worked for as well, which was always come with at least 3 solutions, possibilities, attempts. Show that you've attempted, to solve it maybe at least 3 times. Ideas you might have towards how it might work, but you're still not sure, and so you're coming for some clarity and some guidance and advice. And coming from that angle is always a good way to approach it. Because it shows that you did give it a go, you did give it a think, and even if the person might think it was relatively obvious, at least you've shown them your sort of thought process, and so now they know how to approach it. At least they should, if they're a good leader, if they're someone who actually pays attention to the people that they're mentoring and people that they're training. And so yeah, that's my hope, and that's one of the reasons why, to go back to the earlier question, why I'm in leadership coaching, because I really think it's important to uplift and to encourage and to build up someone, and someone's experience being an up-and-comer, a rising star, should not be one that chips away at their soul, should not be one that breaks them down and strips them emotionally. It doesn't have to be that way. It's completely unnecessary, and unfortunately that's the culture of the corporate world right now, and that's been my experience personally.
Yeah. So what I'd really like to ask you is, if you can't rely on being able to ask for help in the workplace, and you identify that talking to mentors outside the workplace helped you, how would you go about identifying, the right people to provide that mentorship to you, and what kind of questions would you ask?
So I identified those people by watching them. Did their actions match their words? Were they someone that I just energetically felt was approachable? Someone who I just felt safe with, even if it wasn't their area of expertise, it really didn't need to be, because it wasn't an expertise issue. It was a people issue. And so really it was about, how do I see this person interacting with other people in their lives? And is that interaction something that I feel is an example of what it is that I need? And yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah.
Okay, no, brilliant. So I just wanted to ask you a question about the kinds of people that you're working with in the corporate environment. So there might have been a lot of people who had a lot of expertise and they were quite strong-minded, and perhaps didn't have the best people skills. And that could sometimes, I guess, be draining, and can make you think there's something wrong with you, when actually it's actually on them. How would you go, what would you advise someone to do if they're in a situation where, they can clearly see that the person isn't picking on them because they're not doing their work, but it's because of a particular personality trait?
So you're asking me, what would I tell the person who is the trainee or the
trainee? Yeah.
Okay. That one's difficult, because if your leader is someone who doesn't really suit a leadership role, you then sort of need to take the responsibility yourself. And what I have found myself doing in the past as well was learning to manage up. And kind of like, okay, women, we know that sometimes you have to massage the male and let him think it was his idea. Managing up is kind of like that. Yeah, where it's like you sort of plant the seeds and you sort of guide and massage to get what it is that you want. And yeah, and once you realize that that is the issue, that this person just genuinely doesn't know how to connect with people at that level, then you can switch your perspective and you can switch your expectations. I no longer expect you to be what it is that I need you to be. So I'm not going to look for that from you. I'm just going to say, I need to get what you have because you're the expert. So I'm just going to focus on learning from you and approaching you in a way to make sure that I'm massaging you into giving me what I need. And I had to learn that. I learned that a little bit later on, after I had already been emotionally stripped. But it's very possible. But yeah, it then becomes a matter of managing upward in that way.
Okay, great. We have another question. It's super exciting. So I'm going to read it to you.
Yeah.
The next question is, in relation to mindset coaching, is there a specific niche or common theme amongst the people you work with that has really been a stumbling block for their growth? And how do you navigate that?
So one of the big ones is one that everyone hears about all the time is imposter syndrome. I've heard people say, oh, well, so-and-so is a natural leader. I'm not a natural leader. Or, I'm just waiting for everyone to figure out that I'm just making it all up as I go along. And the way that you navigate that, okay, let me ask for clarity on the question. Are you asking how I navigate that as a coach, or how does that person navigate that?
I think it's the person. As a coach.
As a coach, okay. So one of the things that I have learned is sort of, okay, one of the things I've always prided myself on is the ability to have multiple perspectives. And so you take something like imposter syndrome, or I'm not a natural leader, or I feel like I'm making it up, I don't really know what I'm doing, and you spin it. And I say, well, is it because you've never been in this position before? It's a new position. It's a new level. It's a new dimension. It's a new course. It's a new topic. It's a new chapter in your life. Of course you don't know how to do it. You've never been here before. And so what you need to do now is not focus on the fact that you don't know, but focus on the fact of saying, okay, I know I don't know, so let me go find out. Let me be teachable. Let me go back to being a sponge that absorbs and takes, and for women too, we're natural incubators, right? So take everything in, get everything that you can to learn, and just be open-minded, be teachable, position yourself energetically to just be ready to learn, and don't focus on what you don't have. Focus on what it is that you want. I want to be a top-notch leader. I want to slay at this job. I want to be who my team needs me to be. And so it's, how do I position myself? What do I feed myself to become that? And it takes that focus away from imposter syndrome, right? And then eventually you realize, hey, I'm really not an imposter. I'm just learning this thing, and I've learned it now, and here I am. It's a new level, so of course you don't know, and it's okay. And honestly, we should always feel like we don't know a little bit, because we should always be looking to grow. We should always be looking to improve. And growth and improvement means that you don't know everything.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question about growth mindset in just 1 second, but we just have a follow up to the question, which is, when do you walk away, if ever, if the trainee is not putting in the work?
The trainee, like my coaching client, or the trainee in the organization, in the corporate environment?
The coaching client.
Coaching client. So some people aren't coachable. And so if you're...
She said it.
I said it. Some people just aren't coachable. They're not interested in learning. they're not interested in doing the work. So you just cut the cord and let them go. Well, you can't, it's the old saying, right? You can take the horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink.
Sure.
Once you realize that, you just say, okay, that's fine. You're maybe not ready in this stage of your life to actually do what it takes to have what you want. And that's perfectly fine. You still are in process. So let's just take a few steps back, and you can revisit coaching once you're ready.
No, it's true. I agree. People have to be open and willing to coaching or learning or anything that they want to be doing. And when you speak to someone and you give them the opportunity to,
Absolutely. Give them some chances.
Exactly. But then, once you have, given them, ample time to demonstrate, then you do have to cut the cord, as you say. So let's talk about growth mindset, though. So how have you built a growth mindset, and how have you applied that in your, line of work?
So growth mindset, to me, is really just being willing to be teachable. Always giving that effort, just being resilient, keep going, keep trying, one step at a time. Always being self-reflective, and willing to sort of see that truth, and accepting that, and not teaching myself, rather, to not let what I see diminish me or deflate me, which is difficult because we're our worst critics. But being able to see it and say, okay, I need to deal with that, and just being a grown up about it and saying, okay, I need to deal with that, and dealing with it. Whether it's an emotion, whether it's a habit that I don't like, whether it's, bad behavior, just being willing to put that work in and recognizing that, it's not about perfection. And that was one of my biggest things, is that perfection thing. Letting that go. It's not about perfection. It's not about being all the things to everyone. It's not about having this image that seems like, she's just the perfect 10. No. What is the perfect 10? What does that consist of? And who is that? Who wants that? That's boring. It's boring, I want a little bit of fight. I want a little bit of fire. I want a bit of, struggle. It's kind of like Olivia Pope in Scandal, and she said, there's this famous quote with her, and she's just like, I want heart-wrenching, like, horrible, like, devastating love.
Oh, amazing. So I just want to ask you about what your thoughts about handling like failure and thinking about growth mindset.
Yeah, fear of failure was another big one for me too. And it's part of that perfectionist thing, right? And it's really understanding that fear of failure is really about self-shaming. And once you switch your mindset to one that is a growth mindset in self, and that's part of what I do with women, right? It's like, okay, let's go inward and see ourselves and become leaders of ourselves, build that self-trust and that self-love and that self-confidence there, so that everything you exude from that is more positive. And so it's about accepting that failure adds to your growth, because you only learn through failure. So it's okay. If you want to succeed, if you want to grow, if you want to progress, then you need to be willing to fail. And everyone who is successful has a failure story. absolutely no one who is on top of the game can say, I never failed. And so guess what? You're in good company.
For sure, for sure. I just have to say this: failure adds to your growth. You heard it here first. That's a good one.
It does, because built in it is a lesson, right? And that's what growth is learning from the lessons. Life throws you lessons and it says, okay, did you learn it? No, you didn't. Okay, let me throw it at you again until you get it.
Yeah, it's deep. I think a lot of us have a hard time with the whole like it being devastating and total and something we want to just put in the corner. But I think every time you like getting to that point where you're like, you know what, this is part of the journey. This is a stepping stone. This is not just trash.
It's life. It's not school. Yeah, in school, you could probably, have a little bit of a perfectionist mindset there, but after that, it's totally useless. It doesn't serve you at all to think that way. So let's, again, spin it and say, okay, how am I going to leverage this to serve me? And I'm going to say, okay, failure is about learning. Failure is about growth. And I'm in good company because lots of people did it.
Exactly. So what is a tip that you'd say on helping people to shift their mindset that you would like use with your clients?
To shift their mindset,
away from thinking that failure is devastation and total and not growth.
Yeah. So I would say things and ask questions like that. It's like, well, do you know anyone who has succeeded that has never failed? And then your mind starts saying, well, actually, no. Haven't some of the most successful people out there shared their failure stories? Have you ever heard one? If you haven't, maybe you can go research one and then come back and share that with me and let me know how that makes you feel. And really just working through the emotion about it, because that's all that it really is. It's just like I said, self-shaming, feeling like someone's going to judge you, someone's going to think that you're really not all that you're cracked up to be, and once you have that self-knowing that it's like, you know what, I am everything that I'm cracked out to be, because I'm learning, I'm putting in the effort, and I know that I can. And as long as I keep going for it, as long as I keep trying, as long as I keep growing, I will accomplish, I will get there. It's step by step by step. That's how you've approached everything in your life. You started out by counting on your fingers, and then you ended up being able to count in your head and add in your head and multiply in your head. And then it was just natural. You didn't even have to think about it. You just said, oh yeah, this is the answer. So just sort of shifting that perspective to one that serves you, one that supports what we're saying is that failure is a good thing. And so I just reinforce that with examples and with things that are tangible. And again, it depends on the client as well, right? Because some clients need a little bit different approach, but generally that sort of thing works with most people.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for sharing. So I'm just going to ask you, you've had a sneak peek of the book. So please, can you share with us an insight that you found from reading my book?
Yeah. So one of the things you said in your Ask for Help chapter was check your emotions first before you ask for help. That was like one of the things that I was just like, yes. Because that was also something that I had struggled with back then, especially when I experienced that really bad experience that I was talking about. And I think in hindsight, part of why that was such a traumatic experience for me, I actually have described that experience as, at one point in my life, I had PTSD with that situation. But now I can talk about it and not cry. I honestly do think that I had PTSD, because every time I thought about it or talked about it, I would get emotional and choked up, and the lump in the throat, the whole 9 yards. And now I'm like laughing at it. So, but I think part of why it was such a traumatic experience for me is because I was highly emotional in that moment. Everything was coming at me, and I wasn't really processing my emotions. I was more or less feeling everything and saying, okay, but I have to find my way. I have to do this. I have to perform. I still need to show up. And I didn't stop and reflect on that emotion and process it and understand it. So yes, before asking for help, kind of step back and be like, okay, why do I feel like I need to go ask for help? Have I sought out the answers myself? Have I considered all of the other avenues on my own first? Is there someone who I know who has been through this before that I can reach out to before going to the person that is making me feel like I can't ask? Because really that's what it's about, right? Is that I feel like the person that I'm going to, it's going to expose me. It's going to make me look a way that I don't want to feel. It's going to make me vulnerable. It's going to make me look weak. It's going to make me look dumb. And it's all about what we think that person is going to think about us. And that's projection. Like, how do you know that's what they're gonna, and so it's just sort of, you got to stop and check that emotion. And then, you know what, in the end, if it's like, okay, I do still need to go ask that question. Okay, great, fine. And you will then go forward and ask that question with a completely different energy, completely different perspective, a completely different tone. So the way that you even ask the question will probably be more appropriate and more on point. And then you'll be also postured to actually receive the feedback and the guidance at that point in a way that actually starts firing off creativity and
yes.
your mind in a way, because you're not going in from a defeated position. Yeah.
Yes, that is brilliant. Love it, love it, love it. So finally, I just want to ask you, what have you got coming up and how can everyone keep in touch?
So what do I have coming up? I have I'm speaking at a virtual conference in November coming up, November 14th. So look out for my social media posts on that. I'll be posting about that shortly. And speaking of social media, you can find me on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. For LinkedIn, you can just put in Waynette Hollis and find me easy. For Facebook and Instagram, it's Waynette Michelle Denise. And yeah, you could just find me on those things. And I have little tips and little quotes and all sorts of different posts. I never really keep it the same. I can't keep it the same. I get bored too easily for that type of stuff. So just keep an eye out, and I'm sure I'll have something for you that will help you. And if I don't, then drop me a DM or something and let me know, listen, I'm actually struggling with this issue, or, I'd like to know a little bit more about this type of thing. Could you do something for me? I am more than happy to receive suggestions and requests and oblige you. So, yeah.
Okay, so can you just repeat the name of your Facebook group, Waynettes?
Sure. So the Facebook and Instagram is Waynette Michelle Denise. So Waynette, Waynette, Michelle, Michelle, Denise, Denise.
Okay, well, brilliant. Thank you so much, Wayneette. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. We had so much fun and we learned so many things, and we always had this aha moments, and there's moments of like, you know, ground truth, things that people didn't want to say, but we need to know, because sometimes, you know, it can be kind of like, you know, not, it's easy to find out the things that we need to know. And like asking for help is an interesting one, because yes, we need to do it, but we always need to consider how best to do it. And sometimes that actually the people who are saying we should ask them for help are not necessarily the right people to ask for help. So it's going through a real like concerted effort to think about who and why and should I actually.
Yeah, and how to approach it, you know, because some people really actually aren't the right person to ask. They may be the most obvious choice, but they're not necessarily the right choice. So
yeah. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much, and looking forward to connecting again.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You too. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.